How do you tell a good bread is without tasting it? Not the smell, not the look, but the sound, the crust, the symphony of crackle. Only great bread sound this way.
Hey, Kobi here. Welcome back to my channel again. Today I'm going to teach you how to make my favorite dough recipe by far. It only takes 4 to 5 ingredients, and I'll explain in a minute. And you can make awesome crunchy breads like this one. We're going to taste this bread in a minute, but let's first get into the recipe. Now this recipe is super easy. It only takes about 5 minutes to assemble the whole thing together. You never have to clean the bowl out. Look at this, I'm using a dirty bowl. I just finished my previous dough, and right away I just make another one. Keeping these little bits of dough in the bowl actually develop more and more flavor over time, and every time you make this dough, it's just gonna get better and better. It's amazing. Trust me, don't clean the bowl out. I start off with 4 cups of all-purpose flour. You could do any kind of flour you want. I'm using all-purpose flour just to make it simple and easy for everyone to follow along. Next up, you're gonna need just 1 tablespoon of salt. And that goes straight in. Now, this is where the recipe can vary a little bit depending on what ingredients you're using. I have here some dry active yeast. You're gonna wanna use 1 full tablespoon, unless you have sourdough starter, and then you could go for a little less yeast. I like to make this bread a hybrid bread, so I do half sourdough starter and half yeast. But you can really just use yeast. It comes out just as good. I mean, the sourdough has way more flavor that develops over time. You could honestly just use the yeast and it's gonna be just fine. 1 tablespoon of yeast. I'm gonna do a little less because I have the sourdough starter, so I'm doing about 3/4 of a tablespoon of yeast. But let's call it 1 tablespoon of dry yeast going straight in. I need to give this all a little mix, just to make sure I get all the flour and salt and yeast combined. Once it's mixed, I'm gonna add just a little less than 2 cups of water. If I was using whole wheat flour, I would probably do 2 full cups of water. You really need to learn how to feel this dough. I try to do a pretty wet dough. The wetter the dough, the more chewy the bread is once it's done. But I'm gonna start with, let's call it a little less than 2 cups of water, and if I need to add more, I'll add more. So that's 1, and that is just a little less than 2. The last thing that I'm gonna add, this is totally optional, but if you have it, I totally recommend add some of your sourdough starter. This brings up this bread and makes it on a whole different level. I highly recommend it. I usually like to make this bread on a day that I'm feeding my starter, so I could just use my excess starter and plop it right in there, and then I keep the rest of it to keep on feeding it and keep on getting it sourdough and delicious. Now, usually I would use my right hand to mix it, but today, unfortunately, I messed my right hand up a little bit. So I'm gonna just start this with the spoon, but then I'm gonna stir it with my left hand. And it's okay, you're allowed to make a mess. You'll clean it up later. I would probably need about 2 to 3 minutes just till the dough comes together and I don't have excess flour around my bowl. Once I'm done kneading my dough, just get these little pieces off. Most important part, get some plastic wrap and cover your dough. We don't want air in here. Air would dry out our dough, and we don't want our dough to dry out. Now, once I got my dough all nice and wrapped up, I'm gonna probably leave it out here for about 2 hours before I put it in the fridge overnight, just because I want to give this dough a chance to puff up, to double in size, make sure all the yeast and the sourdough is doing their thing and working. But once this dough doubles in size, I just throw it in the fridge, and whenever I want for the next, well, till this dough is gone, and that could happen pretty fast. This is addictive, but I just have this in my fridge for whenever I want a fresh piece of bread or whenever I want something good. Just go to the fridge, pop one out, make some bread, and I have something amazing like this. Now look at that crumb, look at that sound. That is just looking good. Let me give this a little taste test. It's been a couple hours since I made the dough, and I gave it time. I left it on the side. It has risen and about doubled in size. We could take a quick peek at it. Look at the dough all nice and bubbly, and it looks like it's just about ready. Now I just need to throw it in the fridge overnight, and tomorrow morning I could use my cold dough and make some nice fresh hot bread out of it. See you tomorrow morning. Time to make our fresh bread, because there's nothing as good as fresh bread early in the morning. I start with preheating my pizza stone in the oven. I'm heating my oven to 500 degrees. I may turn it a little down once I'm getting the bread in there, but I want my pizza stone nice and ripping hot. When I put these breads on there, I want to get that nice crunchy bottom. All right, we start off with generously flouring my working board. There, just to prove that it's the next day, look at this. I have another Band-Aid, brand new. We bring our dough out. Now, if your dough shrunk to half the size, that's not supposed to happen. What happens is someone decided to use some of this delicious dough just as it was sitting there. I'm kidding, there's no one here. All right, now I like to work with the dough when it's cold because the cold dough just works a little better and sticks a little less. Just roll the dough in the flour a little bit, and I'm gonna form my little bun or baguette shape. Let's see. I like to make them nice and a little long. I make the edges just taper off. I don't know, I think they look fancy like that. Now this dough recipe is great to make any kind of bread. I use it for pizza crust. It's amazing, nice, crunchy, delicious. I even sometimes use it for cakes, but don't tell anyone, that's my secret. Okay, our breads are formed and ready. I grab my little razor blade. Just make a few cuts to make it look fancy. And so when this expands in the oven, I do not get cracking, and I get it cracking along my cuts. You really don't have to do this, but it's fun. I got my pizza stone right here. Let me just place them nicely on my pizza stone. Now I don't need to let this rise very long because in the hot oven it's gonna rise and expand and turn into beautiful bread. Now, grab my towel or my oven mitt, but I'm not fancy like that. Grab my ripping hot pizza stone and go straight in the oven. And last but not least, I like to add a little bit of water to the bottom of the oven just to create steam. That helps make a nice crackly crust. We are out of the oven. They were baking for about 20 minutes at 420, and they are ready. Look at this beautiful bread. Oh, it's nice and hot. Listen to the crunch. That's how you know this is good bread. Let's break into one of these and see. I mean, you should wait, let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes before you cut into them. You need to let them chill. It is time. Listen to this crunch. Oh wow, that looks amazing. This is the one with the olives in it. Let me give it a little taste test. I am pretty speechless. This bread is just amazing. It has that nice crunchy outside, the nice chewy inside, just like a baguette. You could make these breads a little bigger, make nice loaves of them, cook them in Dutch ovens. They are just terrific. If you want to see more recipes like this one, don't forget to leave a like below and subscribe to my channel for more content. See you next time. Believe me, I've only been making this dough for a few months. I would think I bought this at a bakery. It's so good.